A battered old pickup rolled into the lot of Apex City's most elite car dealership, its engine coughing like a tired beast against the backdrop of gleaming supercars. The driver stepped out, tall, shadowed by a hoodie, his face hidden beneath a worn cap, moving with a quiet swagger that didn't match the rust on his ride. Inside Peak Performance Autos, the staff barely glanced up, their eyes trained on the usual parade of suits and status symbols. They had no idea who just walked through their doors. No one did, not yet. But by the end of the day, this stranger would turn their world upside down, exposing secrets they didn't know they were keeping, and proving that legends don't always look the part. What happens when the greatest winner in sports steps onto a new court, disguised as a nobody with everything to play for? The harsh afternoon sun of summer beat down on Apex City, a fictional metropolis nestled among rolling hills and glossy cobblestone streets. From a distance, the roar of an old truck's engine broke through the stillness of the affluent neighborhood. The vehicle, a 1990 Ford F-150 with peeling red paint, rolled slowly into the parking lot of Peak Performance Autos, the city's premier luxury sports car dealership. Dust kicked up from its tires as it came to a stop in a secluded corner, far from the gleaming lineup of Lamborghinis and Porsches basking under the sunlight. The truck door creaked open and a tall figure stepped out. Michael Jordan, the once legendary basketball icon, now a reclusive billionaire, emerged in a guise no one would expect. No bespoke suit or Rolex watch. Instead, he wore a faded gray hoodie, ripped jeans, and a pair of worn Air Jordans from his Bulls practice days. His sharp eyes hid beneath the low brim of a baseball cap, and his walk, that confident stride of a man who once dominated the court, was restrained, almost quiet. He wasn't here to draw attention. He was here to observe. Peak Performance Autos was a recent acquisition in Jordan's sprawling business empire, purchased just 2 weeks prior. The dealership chain had once been Apex City's pride, but it had fallen on hard times due to poor management and a fading reputation. Jordan, with the instincts of a champion, saw potential. He didn't just want to save it, he wanted to transform it into a symbol of excellence, much like he'd turned the Chicago Bulls into a dynasty. But before laying out any grand plans, he needed the truth. How did the staff operate when no one was watching? How did they treat customers when they didn't know who they were dealing with? Jordan paused for a moment, hands in his pockets, his gaze sweeping over the dealership's facade. The modern glass building reflected the sunlight, highlighting the sports cars arranged like works of art. A fiery red Ferrari 488 stood at the center, flanked by a sleek black Porsche 911 Turbo with razor-sharp lines. Outside, the Peak Performance Autos sign glimmered, but Jordan knew that outward shine didn't tell the whole story. He'd learned that on the court. Flashy looks didn't win games, how you played did. He took a deep breath, the scent of hot asphalt mixing with a breeze drifting in from the nearby hills. Then he started walking, his old sneakers squeaking faintly on the stone-paved entrance. As he pushed open the heavy glass door, a blast of cool air from the air conditioning hit him, carrying the smell of fresh leather and car wax. Inside, a vast space opened up before him, high ceilings, LED lights illuminating each car as if they were competing on a stage. A few employees in black uniforms stood scattered around, chatting softly, with the occasional chuckle drifting from the reception desk. Jordan stepped inside, deliberately keeping his pace slow. He felt the shift in the air immediately. Eyes flicked toward him, briefly, but enough for him to notice. A young employee, about 25, standing near the reception desk, stopped typing and looked up. His name tag read Marcus. He had slicked back hair and the confident smile of a rookie salesman. Marcus tilted his head, sizing Jordan up from head to toe, his gaze lingering on the worn sneakers and drab hoodie. "Hey, sir," Marcus said, his tone polite but tinged with hesitation. "Looking for a car? The used lot's out back. I can point you that way if you need." Jordan paused, hands still in his pockets. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing the way they used to when he studied an opponent on the court. "Used cars?" he repeated, his voice low and measured, betraying no emotion. "I didn't say what I was looking for yet." Marcus blinked, his smile faltering just a bit. "Oh, I just thought, we only have high-end stuff here, you know? If you're looking for something more affordable, I can help with that." Jordan didn't reply right away. He turned, stepping toward a bright yellow Lamborghini Aventador a few meters away. The overhead lights danced off its glossy finish, accentuating its aggressive curves. He reached out and lightly brushed the door with his fingertips, the smooth paint familiar in a way that reminded him of checking his shoes before a game. He wasn't a car expert, but he understood craftsmanship, like a perfect three-pointer. "Don't touch that!" a sharp voice cut through the air. Marcus hurried over, his hand raised as if to stop him. "Sorry, sir. We have rules. These cars are expensive, and customers can't touch them unless they're serious." Jordan pulled his hand back and turned to face Marcus. He towered over the younger man by nearly a head, and even in his 60s, his frame still carried the imposing presence of an athlete who'd ruled the NBA. "Serious," he echoed, a hint of amusement in his tone but none in his eyes. "So I don't look serious to you?" Marcus took a step back, clearly caught off guard by the directness. No, it's not that," he stammered. I mean, I don't want you getting in trouble with the manager." Jordan gave a faint smile, the kind his old Bulls teammates would recognize instantly. The smile of a man holding an ace he wasn't ready to play. "The manager," he said, nodding. "All right, get the manager out here." Marcus hesitated, his eyes darting around as if searching for backup. A few other employees nearby had stopped talking and turned to watch. The showroom's atmosphere grew heavier, like the moment a referee's whistle signaled a timeout in a tight game. Marcus finally nodded, muttering, "Okay, wait here," before hurrying toward the back office. Jordan stood still, hands in his pockets, his gaze drifting across the cars. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was used to being underestimated. Back in Wilmington, North Carolina, as a scrawny kid, no one thought he'd amount to much. Even when he got cut from his high school basketball team, he remembered that feeling of being dismissed. But he also remembered how he'd turned that doubt into fuel, practicing until he dropped to prove them wrong. Today was no different, except he didn't need to prove it with a dunk or a game winner anymore. He had other ways. The sound of footsteps echoed from behind, crisp and purposeful. Jordan turned to see a figure emerging from the hallway leading to the offices. It was a woman about 40, with dark hair pulled into a high ponytail and a tailored gray suit hugging her frame. Her name tag read Sophia Carter, manager. She strode toward Jordan, her heels clicking on the marble floor like a drum roll before tip-off. Her eyes were sharp, but her smile was cold. The kind of smile Jordan had seen from opponents trying to play nice before striking. "Hello, sir," Sophia said, her voice smooth as a rehearsed speech. "I hear you wanted to see me. How can I assist you?" Jordan looked at her, not rushing to respond. He noticed how she stood, shoulders square, chin slightly raised, like a coach sizing up a new recruit. He knew this type, confident, maybe overly so. "Just here to look at cars," he said evenly, "but it doesn't feel like I'm too welcome." Sophia tilted her head, her eyes flicking over his outfit again. "We're very welcoming to customers, sir," she replied, emphasizing customers, like an unspoken question. "But this is Peak Performance Autos. We specialize in high-end sports cars. Prices start at $200,000 and up. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Jordan raised an eyebrow, feeling like he'd just heard a taunt from an opponent on the court. "I know where I am," he said, his voice dropping lower. "The question is, do you know who I am?" Sophia gave a small laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I don't need to know who you are," she shot back, her confidence bordering on arrogance. "I just need to know if you're here to buy a car. If not, I'm afraid you're wasting both our time." Jordan nodded slowly, hands still in his pockets. The game had just begun, and he was ready to play. The air in the Peak Performance Autos showroom seemed to thicken as Sophia Carter stood face-to-face with Michael Jordan. The steady hum of the air conditioning filled the space, but it wasn't enough to dispel the tension creeping between them. Sophia crossed her arms, her gaze locked onto Jordan, like a coach deciding whether to put a bench player into the game. Jordan, in contrast, stood still, shoulders relaxed, but his eyes, those eyes that once pierced through opposing defenses, didn't leave her for a second. "So," Sophia broke the silence, her voice still smooth but now edged with a hint of sharpness. "You say you know where you are. Good. But if you're just here to look at cars like it's a museum, I'm afraid we don't have time for that." Jordan tilted his head, a small motion that made Marcus, who stood a few steps away, practically holding his breath, inch back further. "Look at cars," he repeated, his voice low, like the thud of a ball hitting the hardwood in a quiet game. You think I came here just to window shop? Sophia shrugged, the gesture just enough to feign indifference but unable to mask the arrogance in her eyes. I don't know why you're here, she said, but I know these cars aren't for just anyone to buy. We have standards, and it's my job to make sure our customers fit. Jordan let out a soft chuckle, not loud but enough to make the room vibrate. It wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was the kind his old Bulls teammates heard before he sank a game winner. Fit, he said, taking a small step forward, closing the gap between them. You look at me and think I don't fit. Based on what? This outfit? These shoes? Or because I didn't walk in here flashing a stack of cash? Sophia didn't flinch, at least not outwardly. She straightened her posture, her heels tapping lightly on the floor like a subtle challenge. I've been doing this long enough to spot who's serious and who isn't, she replied, her voice even but cold. You want me to guess? I'd guess you're not the type of customer we cater to. If I'm wrong, prove it. Jordan nodded slowly, as if mentally filing away every word she said for later use. He turned, stepping toward the glossy black Porsche 911 Turbo he'd touched earlier. This time he didn't reach out. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, his eyes tracing the car's lines like a coach analyzing an opponent's strategy. Beautiful, he said, almost to himself. Fast, powerful, like a perfect fadeaway. Sophia frowned, not catching the meaning behind his words. If you like it, we can talk, she said, though her tone suggested she didn't believe he'd go beyond idle chatter. It starts at $250,000. Do you have a financing plan in mind? Or should I get someone to walk you through the process? Jordan turned back to her, his eyes sharper now, like when he used to stare down Charles Barkley before a hard-fought play. Financing plan, he echoed, his tone carrying a trace of mockery. You think I need someone to explain how to buy a car? Sophia crossed her arms tighter, the smile on her face now completely gone. I think you need to be realistic, she said, her voice dropping like a warning. This isn't a used car lot. We don't sell to window shoppers. If you're not here to buy, I suggest you leave so I can serve actual customers. Her words hit like a direct jab, but Jordan didn't blink. He'd faced harsher taunts on the court, from booing crowds to opponents trying to get under his skin. This wasn't the first time he'd been underestimated, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But this time, he wasn't here to score points. He was here to change the game. Actual customers, he said, his voice steady but now carrying a flicker of heat. Who's an actual customer to you? The guy in a suit with a gold watch, or the one who knows the value of what he's buying? He took another step forward, his voice lowering. You just told me to leave. You sure about that? Sophia blinked, and for the first time in this exchange, she seemed momentarily thrown off balance. But she quickly regained her composure, her shoulders squaring like a fighter, ready to counter. I'm sure, she said, her voice firm. If you're not serious, I have the right to ask you to leave. This is a business, not a playground. Jordan nodded, not in agreement, but as if tallying a score in his mind. He glanced around the showroom. The other employees had stopped what they were doing, their eyes glued to him and Sophia like spectators awaiting the final play. He could feel the curiosity, the skepticism, and the heavy silence blanketing the room. But he didn't rush. He never rushed in moments like these. All right, he said, his voice soft but laced with power. If you want me to go, I'll go. But before I do, how about a bet? Sophia frowned, clearly caught off guard. A bet? She repeated, her tone tinged with suspicion. What are you talking about? Jordan smiled, this time a real smile. The one Dennis Rodman once said signaled he was about to deliver a knockout blow. I'll bet you, he said, that I can not only afford that Porsche, but I could buy this entire dealership if I wanted to. What do you say? Sophia laughed, but it wasn't natural. It was forced, like someone trying to mask unease. Buy the whole dealership, she said, shaking her head. You really think I'd believe that? Who are you to pull that off? Jordan didn't answer right away. He let her question hang in the air, like a ball spinning mid-court waiting for someone to grab it. Then he stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, yet loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. I'm the guy who turns words into action, he said. Want to test me? Sophia opened her mouth to reply, but before she could, another employee, an older woman near the reception desk, cleared her throat, drawing her attention. Sophia, the woman called, her voice slightly shaky. A VIP just arrived. They want to see the manager now. Sophia turned, her eyes flicking over Jordan one last time before stepping away. I'll be back, she said, her tone icy. Don't go anywhere. We're not done yet. Jordan stood still, watching her walk off, her heels clicking on the floor like a countdown timer. He wasn't worried. He never was under pressure. In his mind, a memory of the 1998 finals against the Utah Jazz flashed by. The moment he stood at the free throw line, knowing the next shot would decide it all. Today was the same, only he didn't need a basketball to win. He turned back to the Porsche, his eyes tracing its sleek black finish, like he was sizing up a worthy opponent. She doesn't know, he muttered, his voice so low only he could hear it. But she'll find out soon enough. Around him, the employees began whispering, their gazes shifting between curiosity and doubt. Marcus, still nearby, quietly retreated toward the reception desk, clearly wanting no part of the trouble brewing. Jordan felt the shift in the air, the familiar sensation of a game about to hit its deciding quarter. He was ready. The game had only just begun. The showroom of Peak Performance Autos buzzed with an undercurrent of unease as Sophia Carter's heels clicked away toward the back office to greet her so-called VIP. The faint hum of the air conditioning mingled with the whispers of the staff, who darted glances at the tall figure in the hoodie standing near the Porsche 911 Turbo. Michael Jordan remained motionless, hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the sleek black car as if it were an opponent he was sizing up. He didn't fidget or pace. Years on the court had taught him the power of stillness, the weight of waiting for the right moment. The air felt thick, like the final seconds of a tied game ticking down. Jordan knew this rhythm well, control the tempo, let the other side overplay their hand, then strike. Sophia had thrown her jab, dismissing him with that icy confidence. But she didn't know she was stepping into his court now. He could still hear her words echoing in his head. We don't sell to people strolling in for fun. It wasn't the first time someone had underestimated him. It wouldn't be the last. From the corner of his eye, he caught Marcus shifting uncomfortably near the reception desk, pretending to shuffle papers while stealing glances his way. The kid was out of his depth, and Jordan almost felt bad for him. Almost. But this wasn't about Marcus. This was about the culture Sophia had built here, the one that judged a man by his threads instead of his substance. Jordan's lips twitched into a faint smirk. They were about to learn a lesson they wouldn't forget. The sound of the glass doors swinging open snapped him out of his thoughts. A man in a crisp navy suit strode in, his polished loafers tapping a steady rhythm against the marble floor. He was tall, though not as tall as Jordan, with salt and pepper hair and an air of quiet authority. Ethan Brooks, the regional director Jordan had handpicked to oversee the Apex City branch, scanned the room with sharp eyes that landed on Jordan almost instantly. A wide grin broke across his face as he crossed the showroom in long, purposeful strides. Mr. Jordan, Ethan called out, his voice warm but carrying an edge of professionalism that silenced the whispers around them. He extended a hand as he approached. Good to see you, sir. I got here as fast as I could. Jordan turned fully to face him, pulling one hand from his pocket to meet Ethan's grip with a firm shake. Ethan, he said, his tone low but resonant, the kind that filled a room without effort. Appreciate you making the trip. The showroom froze. Marcus dropped the pen he'd been fidgeting with, the clatter echoing like a gunshot in the sudden silence. The other employees, 3 of them clustered near a silver Ferrari, exchanged wide-eyed looks, their mouths slightly agape. Sophia, who had just emerged from the hallway with a clipboard in hand, stopped dead in her tracks. The clipboard slipped an inch in her grip, her knuckles whitening as she clutched it tighter. Mr. Jordan? She echoed, her voice cracking just enough to betray her composure. She took a tentative step forward, her heels clicking once before she halted again. Wait, what? Ethan turned to her, his grin fading into something more formal, though a flicker of amusement lingered in his eyes. Sophia, he said, gesturing toward Jordan with an open palm, I see you've already met Mr. Michael Jordan, the new owner of Peak Performance Autos. The words hit like a buzzer beater at the end of a playoff game. Sophia's face drained of color, her sharp features softening into a mask of disbelief. The clipboard trembled in her hands as she stared at Jordan, then Ethan, then back at Jordan again. The owner? She whispered, more to herself than anyone else. You're the Michael Jordan? Jordan tilted his head, meeting her gaze with an unflinching stare. Last I checked, he said, his voice calm but laced with an edge that cut deeper than any shout. You were just telling me I didn't belong here. Guess we're about to find out who's right. Sophia opened her mouth but nothing came out. For the first time since Jordan had walked in, she looked small, her tailored blazer and polished heels no longer a shield against the reality crashing down around her. The staff didn't fare much better. Marcus stumbled back a step, bumping into the reception desk, while the trio by the Ferrari turned away, pretending to inspect the car as if it might save them from the unfolding scene. Ethan cleared his throat, stepping in to break the tension. I assume this isn't the welcome you had in mind, sir, he said to Jordan, his tone apologetic but firm. I'll handle it from here if you'd like. Jordan raised a hand, stopping him. No need, he said, his eyes still locked on Sophia. I've got this. He took a step toward her, closing the distance until he was just a few feet away. The showroom seemed to shrink around him, his presence filling the space like it had filled arenas decades ago. You made a call, Sophia. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth your time. Now I'm curious. Why? Sophia swallowed hard, her throat bobbing as she struggled to find her footing. I didn't know, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. You didn't look like... Like what? Jordan cut in, his tone sharp now, though he didn't raise his voice. Like someone who could own this place? Like someone who could buy that Porsche without blinking? Tell me, Sophia, what does that look like to you? She flinched, her hands tightening around the clipboard until the edges bent. I'm sorry, she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I didn't mean to offend you. I was trying to do my job. Your job, Jordan repeated, letting the phrase hang in the air. He turned slightly, glancing around at the staff who were now watching with bated breath. Your job is to sell cars, right? To make customers feel welcome? Because from where I'm standing, you're batting zero. Sophia's face flushed, a mix of shame and defiance flickering across her features. I made a mistake, she said, her voice steadier now, though it still trembled at the edges. I judged you wrong. It won't happen again. Jordan nodded, but his expression didn't soften. Mistakes happen, he said. I've made plenty, but here's the difference. I owned mine. I didn't let them define me. The question is, can you do the same? Before she could answer, he turned to Ethan, his voice shifting to a clipped, businesslike tone. Get everyone in the conference room, now. We're having a meeting. Ethan nodded briskly. Yes, sir. He clapped his hands twice, the sound sharp and commanding. You heard him, folks. Conference room, 5 minutes. Let's move. The staff scrambled into action, filing toward the back of the showroom like a team heading to the locker room after a tough half. Marcus hesitated, throwing a nervous glance at Jordan before hurrying after the others. Sophia lingered, her eyes darting between Jordan and the retreating employees, as if unsure whether to follow or stay. Go ahead, Jordan said, nodding toward the hallway. We're not done talking. She nodded stiffly, clutching her clipboard like a lifeline as she turned and walked away. Her strides were less confident now, the rhythm of her heels uneven against the floor. Jordan watched her go, then turned back to the Porsche, his reflection staring back at him in the glossy finish. For a moment, he was back in 1982, a skinny kid from North Carolina, stepping onto the court at UNC, hearing the whispers that he'd never make it big. He'd proved them wrong then. He'd prove it again now. Ethan stepped up beside him, lowering his voice. You sure you want to handle this yourself, boss? I can take Sophia aside, smooth things over. Jordan shook his head. This isn't about smoothing things over, he said. It's about setting a standard. I didn't buy this place to keep it the way it was. We're building something better, starting today. Ethan grinned, a spark of admiration in his eyes. You've got it. I'll make sure they're ready. As Ethan walked off, Jordan took one last look around the showroom. The cars gleamed under the lights, each one a testament to speed and precision, qualities he'd lived by his whole life. But it wasn't enough to sell machines. He wanted this place to stand for something more, the way the Bulls had stood for grit and greatness. Sophia's misstep was just the opening play. The real game was about to begin. He adjusted his hoodie, pulling the brim of his cap a little lower, and headed toward the conference room. The staff didn't know it yet, but they were about to meet the man who'd turned doubters into believers time and time again. And he wasn't here to lose. The conference room at Peak Performance Autos felt more like an arena than a corporate space as the staff filed in, their footsteps shuffling against the polished hardwood floor. Glass walls framed the room, offering a clear view of the showroom's gleaming cars beyond. But inside, the air was thick with anticipation. Long tables stretched across the center, flanked by sleek black chairs that creaked faintly as employees settled in. Overhead recessed lights cast a sharp glow, illuminating the faces of a team that looked more like players awaiting a halftime pep talk than salespeople expecting a routine meeting. Michael Jordan stood at the head of the room, arms crossed, his hoodie still draped over his broad frame. The cap shadowed his eyes, but the intensity in them was unmistakable. A look that had once silenced trash-talking opponents and rallied teammates under pressure. Ethan Brooks lingered near the door, arms folded, his navy suit a stark contrast to the casual attire of the man who'd just turned the dealership upside down. The last of the staff trickled in, Marcus among them, his shoulders hunched as he slid into a seat near the back. Sophia Carter entered last, her clipboard clutched tightly against her chest. Her heels clicked slower now, each step measured, as if she were walking onto a court she wasn't sure she belonged on anymore. She took a seat near the far end, her posture stiff, eyes fixed on the table in front of her. The room fell silent, the only sound the faint hum of the ventilation system overhead. Jordan let the quiet stretch, his gaze sweeping across the group. He'd learned long ago that silence could be a weapon. Let it build, let it press down, until everyone felt the weight of what was coming. Finally, he uncrossed his arms and leaned forward, resting his hands on the edge of the table. "Let's get one thing straight," he began, his voice low but carrying the authority of a man who'd called plays in front of screaming crowds. "My name's Michael Jordan, and I own this place. Not because I needed another toy to play with, but because I saw something worth building. Today I came in here to see what I'm working with, and what I saw, it's not good enough." A murmur rippled through the room, soft but uneasy. Marcus shifted in his seat, while a woman with a name tag reading Tanya exchanged a quick glance with the guy next to her. Sophia didn't move, but her knuckles whitened around the clipboard. Jordan straightened, his eyes locking onto each face in turn. "I walked in here looking like this," he said, gesturing to his hoodie and jeans, "because I wanted the real story. No suits, no titles, just a guy off the street. And what did I get? A cold shoulder. Assumptions? A shove toward the door. That's not how you win. That's not how you build a legacy." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I didn't come here to point fingers or fire anybody. Yet. I came to figure out what kind of team I've got, because this isn't just about selling cars. It's about standards. It's about respect. And right now, we're not playing at championship level." Tanya raised a hesitant hand, her voice small but clear. "Mr. Jordan, sir, I think we all try to treat people right, but sometimes, it's hard to tell who's serious. We've had folks come in just to waste time." Jordan nodded, his expression softening for a split second. "I hear you," he said. "I've been there. Back in '84, my rookie year, people looked at me and saw a kid from North Carolina who'd never make it. Coaches, scouts, they'd write you off before you even touch the ball. But here's the thing, you don't win by guessing who's got game. You give everybody a shot, and you play like it's the finals every time." He stepped away from the table, pacing slowly along the front of the room. "This dealership's got a name, Peak Performance. That's not just a catchy slogan. That's a promise, and it starts with how we treat people. Every customer who walks through that door is a potential MVP. You don't bench them because they don't fit your playbook." A few heads nodded, tentative but growing bolder. Ethan leaned against the wall, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he watched Jordan work the room. It was like seeing him run a fast break. Deliberate, precise, unstoppable. Jordan stopped pacing, planting himself back at the head of the table. "I've been in games where the score's tight, clock's ticking, and the crowd's screaming for blood. You don't get through that by coasting. You dig deep, you push harder, and you don't let anything, ego, bias, whatever, get in the way of the W. That's what I want here, a team that plays to win every damn day." He turned his attention to Sophia, who'd been silent the whole time, her gaze still locked on the table. "Sophia," he said, his tone firm but not harsh, "you've been running this show. I'm giving you the floor. What do you say?" All eyes swung to her. She flinched slightly, then lifted her head, meeting Jordan's stare for the first time since the showdown in the showroom. Her lips parted, hesitated, then found their voice. I messed up, she said, her words clipped but audible. I looked at you and saw what I wanted to see. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. The room held its breath. Jordan didn't respond right away, letting her admission hang there, raw and unfiltered. Finally, he nodded. Takes guts to say that, he said. I respect it, but sorry doesn't fix the scoreboard. What's your next move? Sophia blinked, caught off guard by the question. She set the clipboard down, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them together. I'll do better, she said, her voice gaining strength. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. Not to you, not to anyone. Whatever it takes. Jordan studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Good, he said simply, because I don't carry dead weight. You're in the game, Sophia, but you've got to prove you can play. He turned back to the group, his voice rising just enough to pull everyone in. That goes for all of you. We're rewriting the playbook starting now. I'm bringing in training, real training, not some corporate fluff. You're going to learn how to read people, how to treat them right, how to close a deal without making anybody feel small. This isn't just about moving cars off the lot. It's about building trust, building a name that means something. A young guy in the middle row, his name tag read Derek, raised his hand. Mr. Jordan, what if we mess up again? I mean, we're not perfect. Jordan's lips twitched into a half smile, the kind that hinted at a story. I wasn't perfect either, he said. Missed shots, lost games. Hell, I got cut from my high school team, but I didn't quit. You mess up, you own it. You fix it, you move on. That's the deal. Anybody got a problem with that? Door's right there. No one moved. The silence was heavier now, but it carried a different weight. Agreement, maybe even resolve. Tanya sat up straighter. Derek nodded to himself, and even Marcus looked less like he wanted to bolt. Sophia's shoulders relaxed a fraction, though her eyes stayed locked on Jordan, searching for something. Approval, maybe, or a second chance. Jordan stepped back, hands returning to his pockets. We're not here to be average, he said. We're here to be the best. Not just in Apex City, not just in cars, but in how we do business. You're on my team now, and I don't lose. Get ready to work. He glanced at Ethan, giving a slight nod. Ethan stepped forward, clapping his hands once. All right, folks. You heard the man. Back to your stations. We'll roll out the new plan by end of week. The staff rose, chairs scraping as they dispersed, their chatter low but tinged with a new energy. Jordan watched them go, his mind already shifting to the next play. He'd laid the foundation. Now it was about execution. He'd spent his life turning doubters into believers, and this was no different. Just a new court, new stakes. Sophia lingered as the others filtered out, approaching him with cautious steps. Mr. Jordan, she said, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. Thank you for not writing me off. Jordan looked down at her, his cap casting a shadow over his face. Don't thank me yet, he said. I gave you a shot, not a pass. Show me you mean it. She nodded, a flicker of determination crossing her features. I will. As she turned to leave, Jordan called after her. One more thing. She paused, glancing back. Next time someone walks in here, doesn't matter what they're wearing, treat them like they own the place, because they just might. Sophia's lips pressed into a tight line, but she nodded again before slipping out. Jordan stood alone in the conference room, the glass walls reflecting the showroom's lights like a scoreboard, waiting to tally the wins. He thought of Game 6. 98. The steal, the shot, the silence before the roar. This wasn't the NBA, but the feeling was the same. The game was on, and he was ready to lead. The sun dipped low over Apex City a week after Michael Jordan's bombshell visit, casting long shadows across the parking lot of Peak Performance Autos. The dealership hummed with its usual rhythm, engines purring as cars were repositioned, phones ringing faintly behind the glass facade. But there was a subtle shift in the air, a tension that hadn't been there before. Jordan's words from the conference room still echoed in the minds of the staff, a challenge they couldn't shake. You're on my team now, and I don't lose. Inside his modest office, a temporary setup tucked in the back of the building, Jordan sat reviewing sales reports Ethan had emailed him. The numbers were solid but not spectacular, a reflection of the dealership's coasting reputation before he'd taken over. He leaned back in the chair, the creak of leather breaking the silence, and rubbed a hand across his jaw. He wasn't here for solid, he was here for greatness, and greatness didn't come from sitting behind a desk. He stood tugging his hoodie over his head and pulling the cap low once more. The disguise had served him well last time, and he wasn't done testing the waters. If the team was serious about stepping up, he'd see it for himself. No reports, no middlemen, just the raw truth. He slipped out the back exit, circled the lot in his beat-up Ford pickup, and parked it in the same unmarked spot as before. Showtime. The showroom doors slid open with a soft hiss as he stepped inside, the cool air hitting him like the first whistle of a game. The layout was unchanged, Ferraris and Lamborghinis gleaming under the lights, their curves catching the glow like trophies on display. But the vibe felt different. The staff moved with a little more purpose, their chatter quieter, more focused. Jordan kept his head down, hands in his pockets, blending into the scene as just another guy off the street. Marcus stood near the reception desk, flipping through a tablet, his posture less slouched than last time. He glanced up as Jordan approached, his eyes narrowing for a split second before widening in recognition. "Oh, welcome back," he said, his voice tripping over itself. "Looking for anything specific today?" Jordan tilted his head, keeping his tone neutral. "Just browsing," he said. "Got anything worth showing?" Marcus nodded quickly, almost too quickly. "Yeah, sure. The Porsche 911 Turbo's still here. Black one, right over there. You, liked it last time, didn't you?" He gestured toward the car, his movements jittery but earnest. Jordan gave a slight nod, letting Marcus lead the way. The kid was trying, nervous maybe, but trying. That was a start. As they neared the Porsche, Jordan caught sight of Sophia emerging from the hallway, her blazer crisp and her clipboard nowhere in sight. She spotted him immediately, her stride faltering for a heartbeat before she regained her composure and approached. "Afternoon," she said, her voice steady but carrying a trace of caution. "Good to see you again." Her eyes flicked over his hoodie and jeans, but this time, there was no judgment in them, just a flicker of awareness, like she knew the game had changed. Jordan met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Afternoon," he replied. "Thought I'd drop by, see how things are running." Sophia nodded, clasping her hands in front of her. "Things are running," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "We've been working on what you said, about treating everyone right. It's a process, but we're getting there." "Show me," Jordan said, his tone a quiet command. He stepped back, gesturing toward the showroom floor. "I'm a customer. No title, no name. Handle it." Sophia didn't hesitate. She turned to Marcus, her voice calm but firm. "Marcus, grab the spec sheet for the 911 Turbo. Let's walk our guests through it." Then she faced Jordan again, stepping into the role seamlessly. "This one's a beast. 475 horsepower, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Perfect for someone who likes control and speed. Want to take a closer look?" Jordan raised an eyebrow, impressed but not showing it. "Yeah," he said, following her to the car. "Let's hear it." She launched into the pitch, her delivery smooth and confident, detailing the engine, the handling, the custom options, all without a hint of the condescension he'd faced before. Marcus chimed in with the tablet, pointing out features like the carbon ceramic brakes and adaptive suspension. It wasn't flawless. Marcus fumbled a line, and Sophia's smile tightened once. But it was solid. More than solid. It was progress. Jordan listened, nodding occasionally, his hands still in his pockets. When they finished, he stepped back, glancing between them. "Not bad," he said. "Feels different from last time." Sophia's smile softened, a touch of relief breaking through. "We're trying," she said. "Like I said, it's a process." Before Jordan could respond, the showroom doors slid open again, and a new figure stepped in. A young guy, maybe mid-20s, wearing a faded denim jacket and scuffed sneakers. His hair was a mess, and he carried a sketchbook under one arm, his eyes wide as he took in the lineup of cars. The staff's attention shifted, a subtle test unfolding in real time. Jordan watched as Sophia excused herself and approached the newcomer. "Welcome to Peak Performance," she said, her tone warm but professional. "What brings you in today?" The guy, Jordan caught the name Javier when he mumbled it, shifted his weight, looking almost sheepish. "Just looking, I guess. I'm an artist. Do some car sketches. These are insane. Sophia didn't miss a beat. They are, she agreed, gesturing toward a silver Maserati nearby. This one's a favorite for design. Clean lines, aggressive stance. Want to take a closer look? I can tell you about it. Javier blinked, clearly surprised, then nodded eagerly. Yeah, that'd be cool. Jordan hung back, observing as Sophia guided Javier through the showroom, her demeanor patient and engaged. She didn't push a sale, didn't rush him, just let him talk, sketching in his book while she pointed out details. Marcus joined in, offering a water bottle from the fridge, his nerves replaced by a tentative friendliness. It wasn't perfect. Javier wasn't buying today, but it was exactly what Jordan had asked for. Respect, no assumptions. He slipped away from the Porsche, moving toward the glass wall to watch from a distance. Ethan appeared beside him, hands in his pockets, his voice low. Looks like they're listening, boss. Looks like it, Jordan said, his eyes still on Sophia and Javier. But hearing and doing are two different things. We'll see if it sticks. Ethan chuckled. You're tough on him. Got to be, Jordan replied. You don't win 6 rings by going easy. Later that afternoon, Jordan called Sophia into his office. The space was sparse, just a desk, a chair, and a framed photo of the '97 Bulls on the wall, but it carried his presence like a locker room after a championship win. Sophia stepped in, her confidence tempered by a trace of nerves. Sit, Jordan said, nodding to the chair across from him. She did, smoothing her blazer as she settled. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. I saw you with that kid today, he said. Good work. That's what I'm talking about. Treating him like he matters. Sophia nodded, a faint flush creeping up her neck. Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about not writing people off. I didn't realize how much I'd gotten into that habit. Jordan studied her, his gaze piercing but not unkind. Habits die hard, he said. I had mine. Pushing too hard, trusting too little. Took me years to figure out it's not just about me winning, but the team. You're a part of this now, Sophia. You ready to run the play? She straightened, meeting his eyes. I am, she said, her voice firm. I won't let you down. Don't let yourself down, Jordan corrected. I can handle losing a game. I don't tolerate losing to ourselves. She nodded again, the weight of his words settling in. Understood. He leaned back, breaking the tension. Good. We've got a training session tomorrow, bringing in some old teammates to talk teamwork, discipline. Be there. Wouldn't miss it, she said, a small smile breaking through. As she left, Jordan turned to the window, the lot stretching out before him. The Ford sat there, a relic among the supercars, but it fit him, unassuming until it wasn't. He thought of Javier sketching away and Sophia stepping up. Small wins, but wins nonetheless. The scoreboard was ticking up, and he was just getting started. The late afternoon sun hung low over Apex City, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold as it filtered through the glass walls of Peak Performance Autos. Inside, the showroom buzzed with a quiet energy. Salespeople moved with purpose, customers lingered longer, and the air carried a hum of possibility that hadn't been there weeks ago. Michael Jordan stood just outside his office, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold like a coach surveying a practice that was finally clicking. It had been 2 weeks since the training session he'd promised. A grueling day led by Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, who'd rolled in with stories of grit and teamwork that left the staff wide-eyed and scribbling notes. Pippen had talked about trust, Rodman about hustle, and Jordan had tied it all together with a single line. You don't win alone, and you don't win by half-assing it. The message stuck. Sales were up, not a flood, but a steady climb. And the vibe in the dealership had shifted from transactional to something deeper, something Jordan recognized from his Bulls days, a team finding its rhythm. He caught sight of Sophia across the floor, guiding a middle-aged couple toward a crimson Ferrari. She gestured to the car's sleek lines, her tone warm but sharp with expertise, no trace of the clipped edge she'd once wielded against him. The couple nodded, hanging on her every word. Nearby, Marcus chatted with a teenage kid in a hoodie, not a buyer, just a car nut, pointing out the engine specs of a Mustang with a grin that said he was enjoying it as much as the kid was. Small moments, but they added up. Jordan's lips twitched into a faint smile. This was what he'd come for. The doors slid open, and Javier, The artist from last week stepped in, sketchbook in hand. He hesitated, then waved at Sophia, who waved back with a nod. "Back for more inspiration?" she called, her voice carrying a lightness Jordan hadn't heard before. "Yeah," Javier replied, holding up his book. "Got a commission for a car piece. Thought I'd grab some details." "Take your time," Sophia said, pointing him toward a silver Maserati. "Let me know if you need specs." Jordan watched the exchange, his cap pulled low as he leaned against the wall. Javier wasn't buying today, might never buy, but Sophia treated him like he owned the place, just as Jordan had told her to. That was the play. Every person through those doors mattered, whether they left with keys or just a story. He'd seen it on the court, fans in the nosebleeds cheering just as loud as the front row. You didn't build a legacy by picking and choosing who got your best. Ethan Brooks emerged from the hallway, a tablet under his arm, and joined Jordan by the wall. "Numbers are looking good, boss," he said, keeping his voice low. "Up 15% since last month. Word's getting out. People like the feel here now." Jordan nodded, eyes still on the floor. "Numbers are nice," he said, "but it's not about that yet. It's about the foundation. You build right, the wins come." Ethan grinned. "Spoken like a champ. Speaking of, you see the local paper today?" Jordan raised an eyebrow. "No, what's it say?" Ethan tapped his tablet, pulling up a headline. "Mystery owner shakes up Apex auto scene, a lesson in respect." He handed it over and Jordan skimmed the article, a recap of his undercover visit, pieced together from whispers and leaks, though it didn't name him outright. It praised the dealership's new approach, quoting an anonymous customer. "Felt like they actually cared I was there." "Guess the cat's half out of the bag," Ethan said, chuckling. "Folks are talking." "Let 'em talk," Jordan replied, handing the tablet back. "Long as they're saying the right things." And they were. Beyond the dealership's walls, the story of Jordan's visit had taken on a life of its own. At Apex High, a teacher had turned it into a lesson on bias, asking students to debate how appearances shape judgment. Local businesses, a coffee shop, a boutique, started buzzing about their own customer service, some even sending managers in disguise to test their teams. The Chamber of Commerce latched on, touting it as a case study in leadership, though they only knew a wealthy owner was behind it. Jordan didn't care for the spotlight, he never had, but he liked the ripple. Change didn't stop at the showroom doors. Back inside, Sophia wrapped up with the couple, who left with a brochure and a promise to return. She caught Jordan's eye across the room and gave a small nod, a silent check-in. He nodded back, then pushed off the wall, heading toward the lot. The air outside was warm, the scent of asphalt and exhaust mingling with a breeze from the hills. His Ford sat where he'd left it, a stubborn contrast to the supercars lined up nearby. He climbed in, the door groaning as it shut, and started the engine. Driving through Apex City, he saw traces of the shift he'd sparked. A barista at a drive-thru waved him through with a grin, no rush in her movements. A kid on a skateboard nodded as he passed, like they were in on something together. Small, fleeting things, but they stuck with him. He'd come to fix a dealership, but maybe, just maybe, he'd nudged something bigger. Back at the lot, he parked and stepped out, the sun now a thin line on the horizon. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at peak performance autos bathed in twilight. The sign glowed faintly, its promise of excellence no longer just a tagline. He thought of Game 6, '98, the steal from Malone, the crossover on Russell, the shot that sealed it. That moment wasn't about the ring, it was about the fight, the proof that he could bend the game to his will. This felt like that, not a trophy yet, but a victory in the making. Inside, Sophia locked up for the night, her silhouette moving through the showroom as the lights dimmed one by one. She'd stayed late, reviewing training notes with Marcus and Tanya, her clipboard replaced by a tablet she'd started using to track progress. Jordan had seen her that morning, running drills with the team, role-playing customer scenarios, tweaking their approach. She wasn't perfect. She'd snapped once when Marcus botched a line, but she'd caught herself, apologized, kept going. That was enough for now. The next day, Jordan sat in his office, the Bulls photo on the wall catching his eye. Pippen had called after the training, laughing about how the staff had hung on his every word. "You've got 'em running plays like it's the triangle offense," he'd said. Jordan smirked at the memory, then turned to the window. Sophia was out there, walking a new customer, a woman in a tracksuit, through a blue Porsche, her gestures animated, her focus total. He leaned back, the chair creaking under him. The dealership wasn't the Bulls, not yet, but it was his. He'd taken a team on the ropes and given them a shot at something bigger. Sales would climb, sure, but that wasn't the win he was chasing. It was the shift, the way Javier sketched with confidence, the way Marcus didn't flinch at a hoodie anymore, the way Sophia led with purpose instead of pride. The phone buzzed on his desk, Ethan with an update on the next branch he wanted Jordan to check. Same play? Ethan asked when Jordan picked up. Same play, Jordan said. Different court. He hung up, standing to grab his keys. The Ford rumbled to life as he pulled out, the city lights flickering on around him. Apex City wasn't Chicago, and cars weren't basketball, but the game was the same. Build a team, set a standard, leave a mark. He'd done it before. He'd do it again. As he drove, he thought of the kid he'd been. Cut from the varsity team. Doubted at every turn. That kid had clawed his way to 6 rings, a name that echoed decades later. Now he was here, turning a dealership into something more than a business. A place where respect wasn't a privilege, but a rule. The road stretched ahead and Jordan smiled, a rare, quiet thing. The scoreboard was live, and he was still in the game.